Welcome to the show. Welcome, baby.
Yeah, excited to be here for sure.
Where are you calling in from? Is it Germany? Is that where you're
Yeah,
calling
it's,
in?
it's Berlin and the capital of Germany. It's a nice place normally. Like nowadays, it's certainly like not too much to do. Like Berlin is mostly about good restaurants, meeting people in bars and outside,
Yeah.
having a beer or so. And certainly, it's nicer places in Germany right now. And like nature is missing a bit in Berlin, although we have lots of parks, which is certainly helpful.
One of the things we always start with on the show is to get to know our guests. And we try to do that by getting to understand your authentic self. And one shared experience we all have globally is COVID isolation, self-isolation, work from home. So I love to hear, and I ask this to everybody, just curiosity, how'd you survive? How'd you make it through? Right? Because most of our guests are from the United States, and we move at a different pace than most of the world. Your country is also one of the leaders as well. And I just was curious.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's not the nicest situation. I mean, I personally, for example, really like to be in the office. I know there's a lot of people who really like this remote style, and also, get to organize myself with it. But I'm more of the office person, like meeting other people there, discussing ideas. And I think this is like something that really, hit me the most in the beginning. Particularly, I was afraid of not having like the same kind of motivation, but turned out actually it's work quite well on the job site. And outside work, I mean, certainly I think it's a situation that's not so nice, for sure. I'm also a more social person, like to meet friends, but we are in the lucky situation that you still can meet friends, more on a like one-to-one basis, not so much larger group gatherings, which I also really enjoyed. But I'm also a fan of more deeper conversation, and this is certainly still able to happen on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of cut you off because I really want to dig in there. You like being in the office, which is positive, but it's something I don't hear that much from data scientists. Everyone wants it to be not, there is, and everyone who might be watching this on the feed, we've got these beautiful headphones. Like our data science team, we know how to crank code in silence and be by ourselves. Now, a year of being from home, do you still miss the office as much, right? Because you said you missed it, but now 18 months later, I don't know. I mean, where are you now? Do you miss it?
Yeah, I mean, I still like it, but I think one of my personal like traits that I have is that I'm really good at just ignoring noise and like surroundings up to the point where like I can pretend listening to people and don't think about it at all. I mean, that's certainly not the nicest thing to do. I mean, it certainly helps in an office scenario, right? Where you just sit there and like the office is buzzing around you and you can really still focus on your work. I like this kind of feeling of being on something that's like buzzing of life, right? So particularly in a company like Trade Republic where I'm working, where it's really all about hyper growth and you see that something's going on. It's nice to have this feeling. But certainly, yes, I also know lots of colleagues that really enjoy the silence of being at home because they got distracted too easily, right?
You bring up something that we've not talked about on the show. And I want to go there for a second. I've had the good fortune of starting a company. I've had the good fortune to being at companies during hypergrowth. I've also had the good fortune to going and meeting with companies that are not at hypergrowth. And when you get out of an elevator opens, and you just hear hundreds or tens of people hitting keys, the sense of growth. There is a frenetic feeling when you walk through a space and you feel it. And then there's a different experience when just silence, like different silence, not silence because we're not talking, but you don't hear the keyboard, you don't hear the phones. You bring up something that I do miss. I do miss that energy of this is nuts. Like things here are nuts. Tell me about that, right? You just brought up a really great experience because then you're like, yeah, like it's fucking nuts here. Today is a nuts week.
Exactly right. I mean, particularly Trade Republic. I mean, I joined the company like in September 2019. There were 20 people on the team in total, and then half a year later in March, we were around like 40. I just got my first data engineer on the team, and like suddenly everyone went to home office, but that obviously didn't kind of hinder our growth. And actually, the whole Corona situation and the stock market crash and the boom really kind of added oil to the fire more. And so we quickly grew like tenfold almost, right? Up to this point, more than tenfold. And having hired all these people would have certainly created in an office. I mean, besides the fact that we certainly would have had trouble fitting all these people into our small office back then, it certainly kind of creates this atmosphere of being onto something and celebrating this amazing growth also as a team together is something really important. That we also did before Corona happened, then suddenly you got robbed of this chance to do that. And definitely hits motivation of particularly new joiners who didn't have this feeling before, right? And so you need to cope with that on a different level, right? You need to make them aware that this is a very outstanding situation and kind of deliver this message that this company is really going through something extraordinary, something unique on a different level. And I think this, for example, is easier on the data side because you have the charts that are tending in a certain direction, right? You can see it from the data that you look to on a day-to-day basis. But for many other people, it's just not there at all, right? And this is something I think which can certainly harm motivation.
Yeah. It's exciting when you're in a high growth company, whether you be at home or in the office. It's exciting when all of a sudden, either on Teams or Slack, everyone's like, hey, new team member. It also shows you to how important onboarding is. I'm starting to use a lot more Loom videos and these quick videos. Are you doing more video chat of like, hey, like I created this quick video to show you internally how to get to this file, or hey, I made this quick video for you. Are you using more video with teammates? Are you going back to like Slack? I mean, what else have you seen that is just evolving out of just pure get the work done?
So we didn't have the video recording thing too much yet. And there have been a few sessions that have been recorded, but I think up to or at this point, like many of the onboarding things are like changing so quickly, and like also the systems that we work with and everything, that it's probably feels not worth the investment, which might probably not be right still. So what we do is heavily work with dedicated onboarding sessions where we literally do a whole week for every class of new joiners basically, and really have a proper schedule. Like these are the tables that you're going to work with. These are the systems. This is why we designed them the way they are. This is your access. Here you have like the most important documents for this and that. And this is how the data model works. And so really have an organized, almost school-like week for data people specifically.
Yeah. So now fast forward months, not weeks, months. America's getting back. June 15th, a lot more companies are going to be into a hybrid setup. Are you excited to meet with the team? What city do you want to travel to? I feel like Superman, but I've only unbuttoned like my first two buttons. I'm ready. I'm ready to fly, but I'm like, do you know what I mean? That I'm in this weird zone of like, on first button of my Superman shirt's off. The second one, like, what are you emotionally feeling? Are you feeling like, oh, it's coming?
Yeah, I mean, I know in Germany we have this slightly different situation where we didn't really get our vaccines in a row orderly. So I don't know how long it will be the matter for us. But yeah, I mean, certainly we are all looking really forward to meeting each other. So there's a new office that we're going to move in somewhere next year, right? And like having this kind of buzz around, like having amazing summer parties with the whole team, and this is like something like everyone's really looking forward to. I think it's really that you can feel this in every interaction that you have with people that are craving for this, right? So sometimes we meet outside for a quick lunch, get a sandwich somewhere together, and then eat it out in the sun. Certainly that's nice, but it's not a replacement for a proper long evening on a rooftop drinking a few beers, right? That's a very different story. And so, yeah, I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that. Yeah. In terms of traveling, I don't know. I mean, I used to go to very far off places. I don't know how this is possible at this point, but I'd really like to go to Southeast Asia, for example.
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go. I've not been, and I'm going to ask another interesting question. And if you're watching on the feed, I've buzzed my hair during COVID. You've got great hair. who's cutting your hair? Like, how are you getting your hair cut? I mean, this guy's got incredible hair. Like, are you cutting it yourself? Such a weird question, but it's great.
Yeah. At this point, like the matter is more that I didn't do it for a while. Back then, I think the last time my girlfriend actually did it, because all the barbershops were closed down, so she did an amazing job with that. But yeah, I'm also looking forward to get an appointment.
Tell her she did a good job. Tell her I wish I had that problem. So you say to her, we did a good job. Now, I'm glad we got to joke around and get to know you. Now, I'm sure there's things you also want to talk about. What's important to you that you want to amplify about the company, about what you're working on? This is the forum. Tell us.
Yeah. So something that I'm basically spending most of my time with at these days is hiring. So we are like really expanding heavily. So me and my team are mostly focusing on all the things engagement. Basically, once a customer, Trade Republic is a trading app, so similar to Robinhood in the US, it's all about user experience, about making it accessible to everyone. And so our core goal basically is to enable people to do trades easier, to find the stocks that they want to invest in more easily, to also probably discover new stocks that have not seen yet, because particularly for newer investors, it's a big problem that they only mostly know about the household names, kind of their favorite car brand or whatever. But there's a lot of B2B companies that are less less much known and still like really valuable investments. And so how do you enable them, right? So, and we invest a lot into kind of classifying stocks into different groups, trying to put together lists of interesting stocks that we could kind of show to people in order to just make them value diversification more. And so we're looking into a lot of options in this direction. And this is something that I'm particularly looking forward to address with my team. But for that, we really need to hire across the whole board. So we're looking for a lot of data scientists. And so currently my team is just 5 people, and we're looking to add another 20 or so until the end of the year. And so I'm literally spending my whole day to interview, reach out.
Go from 5. Do they have to be in Germany, or can it be anywhere?
As I like the office, and we kind of want to maintain this kind of close collaborational atmosphere. We tend to have at least some office presence still, also for the future. But we also would be open to partially remote situations, like a few months to a year should be possible to be somewhere in the world. But certainly we would like to have this kind of central office hub for a few days a week.
I'm going to make a few connections with you. They're not in Germany, but that's okay. They might know someone, they might, I don't know, but everyone loves rocket ships. They're in startups. I think that's exciting. So there's a few people that I want to have you meet. Like you're saying, being at places like this, there is nothing more exciting than that space that you're. I enjoy it because I like to be in the build part versus the maintenance part. And it sounds like you're still in the build part.
We're heavily in this.
So I think that's exciting. And there's also, a great energy that happens in the type of person that you're looking for that likes to build. So I think that's wonderful. Congratulations on the success. Easy to see why. Just you're super friendly, and the problem is a big problem. So this has been a real treat for us. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to Europe this year, but if I do, I want to just count on me and you hanging out and grabbing a beer or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah. Is there last question is always about maybe just some advice. There are people graduating. Some people might want to work at hypergrowth startups. Some people might want to work at a big company, SAP. Any advice you would give to a young data engineer or data scientist?
Yeah. And this is the typical situation where you always stand, right? Do I choose the kind of more stable company where there's a set career path and everything already available? Probably also often comes with a higher salary in the beginning. And then on the other hand, you have these kind of up and coming growth companies. And I think personally, like many of the startups advertise that they have a new stack and that they have amazing technologies to work with. But reality, and I think that's something you need to face, is that you often will work on more kind of ground up things, right? There's a lot of stuff that you need to set up and then build on top. That means that you will, in the beginning, work a bit more of kind of the basic technologies. But the cool thing is you can really build it together with advice of really senior people in most cases. to a level where it's quickly accelerating the incumbents, right? So whereas in the big companies, you will kind of start working with probably a more sophisticated stack in the beginning, but then there's literally almost no progress mostly, right? And this is, I think, particularly what's really interesting for new joiners or for every graduate also to see this progress, right? To see what you can achieve in a relatively short time and how you also deal with this change, right? I think this is eventually also what you can transfer if you want to later on go to a bigger company, transfer over there and try to establish the same principles, try to establish the same work mode to make it a bit more dynamic again, right? There's certainly other things that hinder you from doing that, but having this mindset, having seen it firsthand, certainly is enormously valuable.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I think it is the quandary that I always think about is, in a typical world, do we chase great managers and management training, SAP? Do we chase big data sets or interesting data sets, Trade Republic? Do we be the world's very focused person just on one stock? Like, we don't know. So it's like, there's so much data. Do you just focus on a boring data set, but be the best at it? Do you chase the logoed brand on your resume? They're like, oh, this person's from SAP. They clearly have been trained, or they clearly know big process. I don't know. There is an answer. It's just good to talk about.
Yeah, but I think there's also this particular type of startups that are where it's really clear that they will become a major brand relatively soon. Like, so the ones like, I'd say in Europe, for example, Trade Republic and some others that are in different other areas, mostly ones that are funded by the top VCs, right? So they're on track to become that. But it's certainly still a cool place to start off. Everybody kind of recognizes and knows that they have built something great, which you then have been part of. But these are also the most competitive to get in, I think. So it's clear.
Yeah. And those are the ones that, you're right, they're like, if you get into them in 3 years, you are the most desirable person because you were early, you helped build it, or you might just have your exit, which is what we all want, which is congratulations. Yeah, I love playing early. This to me is the only place I like to play. So I like meeting other people that like to play early because we are crazy. So welcome to the crazy. Great show, Hannes. This was fun. We're sponsored by Pandio. We want you back to keep on hearing about the updates, if that's okay.
For sure, yes. It was a pleasure.
All right. And thanks for being on the show.